the first to know in Nsem-Pii TV.
NRA, which is 10th September, and President John Dramani Mahama and Nsem-Pii Ekokoshia so far ono eba betena akonwane so from 7th January up to 10th September o shase se ono chire betena akonwane so nyoma a watimi aye ene okasa de efa galamsey ho sanso ena okasa de efa ora ene wonhuma a won because na omanfo ni bebre se the one na NDC amanyuko ne de ani bre ewura ora ni no nka won adwen se NDC amanyuko ne betena akonwa so a 2-3 months se de president Kofoye no fast track high court no ne ade bebe ba etimi jeli nipa sharp no nka sa na NDC amanyuko ne be nanso no entimi amanesa na po adom ochre edena no atumbi about John Dramani Mahama media encounter.
Is that the case?
Well, I don't know whether they failed to do their job or not, but most of the 10,000 cases that they refer to, which I'm not sure why we can't see it. Pages, which I'm not sure why we can't, because we've heard that we can't see it. Most of it must have come from the Chief Justice, according to what her lawyers are saying, that most of those documents were documents that they submitted. They called the highest number of witnesses, and there are conversations that they actually even subpoenaed people. The people came there and they were not allowed to speak by the chairman of the committee and the committee's rulings. So they really have a story to tell. And if you listen to Newsfile last Saturday, you see the outrage of Ay3de, which was unfortunate, I have to say. But you can understand his outrage, being a former attorney general, a seasoned legal luminary, and seeing that some of the fundamental procedures were overlooked, overstepped, and just beaten up at the committee process. He was quite concerned. So it begs the question that this Article 146 process, which we thought we will never need it to remove a Chief Justice, there is an impeachment of a president. We have said that we will never need it. And that is because the president is given a political protection. The political protection in the president's removal is such that whenever the decision is made, Parliament must by 2/3 elect for the president to be impeached. So we assume that whenever somebody is president, he's very likely to have the Parliament. But come 2028, we may very well have a situation where the NPP may win the presidency, but the deficit in Parliament might not be recovered in the same election. So you can go into the Parliament with NDC leading by 10 or 20 or something, and the NPP have the presidency. It is then that the threat to that presidential impeachment will come up, because it's very easy to get in fact, it's easier to get the president than the Chief Justice in 146. Because in the president's process, it says that if he has taken any decision that economically doesn't benefit Ghana, and we can find $1 million in a president's tenure of 4 years, you can find Akufo-Addo impeachment for e-levy. He took the decision for e-levy. It didn't economically benefit Ghana. How do you know whether it benefited Ghana economically or not? You just do a vox pop, and everybody will say that I don't like e-levy, I don't like e-levy. Okay, Mr. President, you took a decision, let's start the process. But the president always knows that Parliament will be for him. But one day, Parliament may not be for the president of Ghana. And that is a plausible outcome in the constitutional arrangement that we have. And then we will see what happens. But that process is put there not so that we can impeach the president. It's put there so that in the extreme of extreme cases, there's something for us to pick and look at. We don't put Article 146 there so that every now and then we are tinkering with removing the Chief Justice, and my party comes, I remove Chief Justice, and my party comes. I mean, we all miss Professor Mills. There was significant pressure on him in 2009, and led by Ay3de, who's gone, who's passed to eternal glory, may he rest in peace. But Ay3de and others heaped significant pressure on Professor Mills to the point where the president had to come out publicly to say that I am not interested in proceeding with an Article 146 process to remove Georgina Wood. I will not do that. And then in the subsequent press conference, the chairman of the party, once again, chairman of the NDC, at that time, Johnson Asiedu Nkatia was general secretary. The chairman was a man they call Wayose, my very good friend, Kwabena, may he rest in peace. He used to be member of parliament for the MPP in 79, and then he became NDC and became his chairman. Kwabena was asked at a press conference that now that the president says that he's not going to remove the chief judge, what would you do? And he meted out the famous words which President Mahama had occasion to refer to last night. He said, there are many ways of killing a cat. That's what he said, that there are many ways of killing a cat. And that's what President Mahama was referring to yesterday, say he's not a cat hunter or something like that.
Exactly.
But this is the history we have come from. And we would have thought that having achieved this kind of measured precedent in 2009, that perhaps we have put that to some extent behind us. But here we are we have had a situation where Article 146 had to be invoked, not against a Chief Justice who has done something really sacrilegious in terms of the administration of justice, say telling a judge that don't rule this way, if you rule this way, I'll do this, trying to offer money to a judge that's ruled this way, shifting a judge around.
Let me come in at this point. There are concerns that we should raise the bar when it comes to the amendments of our laws to ensure that the removal of key individuals like the Chief Justice, the President, for example, is very difficult, even if you're going to go through the legal route.
But it is difficult. As it is very difficult. But you have people hiding behind in camera and say that we can't talk about it. We don't want to publish it on television. We don't want to show a lot of the confidence that has occasioned the Ghanaian judiciary, which has helped in the democracy, came in 2013 when the election petition was showed on television. It started in America when the O.J. Simpson trial was showed on television. These things engender confidence in the judiciary, the judicial systems, encourages young people. There are many lawyers today who will tell you that they became lawyers when they watched the election. They wanted to become lawyers when they watched the election petition.
We should make the whole process public.
If you go to America, many of a certain generation of their lawyers decided to be lawyers when they watched the O.J. Simpson trial. So these things are very important. It engenders confidence. And so the Chief Justice went to Supreme Court applying that in spite of the in-camera process, which is to protect the subject, really. She is the subject. She thinks she doesn't need that protection. Can we show it on television? It would have done a lot of good to the process. But somehow or rather, somebody didn't want that exposed. And that's the beginning of the deep thinking and the beginning of where the overthinking political analysts now begin to think, why doesn't somebody want this? Who loses? Who loses when the thing comes on television? And that's a decision.
But if her request is against the law, when the law is clear that some of these cases should be held behind the cameras to ensure that we protect the sanctity of even the position in itself, depending on the issues that will come out.
There's precedent for that. There's precedent for that, not in the statutory law, but there's precedent for that in case law. In the election petition, the actual application had gone to the Supreme Court for the matter to be showed live on television. The Supreme Court had denied the application, I believe, by a 5-2. Had denied the application. Chief Justice Georgina Wood decided to apply an administrative fiat to determine on her own that the thing should be showed on television. If the thing showed on television occasioned financial loss to the state, for instance, today we can prosecute Georgina Wood for occasioning financial loss to the state because she decided against case law. Case law said you can't do it, and they raised all of these issues. Court is this, court is that. That was the Supreme Court decision. She wasn't a member of the panel. She took a decision later on, but it doesn't matter. In the interest of democracy, I think we should do this. Called Ghana Television. It was going to cost a lot of money. The Judicial Service were to pay that money, and Justice Georgina Wood decided, let's show it. So yes, that's why the Chief Justice went to the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court have the power to look at these things and make decisions in favor of democracy and development, in favor of the deepening of accountability, and in favor of building our own democracy. They could have made that decision because really, who loses when some of these things come public? When we watched the election petition, it was a win-win-win-win for everyone. Nobody lost. The electoral processes were better defined. We came in with stronger rules. That's why we brought in all this BVMR or all of those things. And the electoral process was supposed to be better thereafter. So once this Article 146 process did not see the light of day for the exposure for people to see it, it began to raise questions. And then at the end of it, listening to the lawyers of the Chief Justice, it's unfortunate that perhaps the members of the committee don't want to speak or they cannot speak because we don't have their side of the story. Yes. So everything we are hearing is one side of the story anyway. I have to admit that at the outset because we really have to hear the other side of the story. But the kinds of things being said, if it happened, even if there are exaggerations and that it did happen, then we really have a lot to look at under the Article 146 process that removed Justice Tokono.
And that should be a job for the Constitutional Review Committee.
I don't think they can do much about it. And I've been hearing that because Article 146 is an entrenched clause. And once an entrenched clause, there's a clear way to amend entrenched clauses. And Parliament has nothing to do with it. I think people don't seem to realize that when an article is entrenched, Parliament has absolutely nothing to do with it in whether it is changed or not. It is just laid before Parliament, if you look at the rules and the Constitution itself, and then it passes to a referendum where 75% of the registered voters must vote and a certain percentage must vote for the new bill, and then it's passed. Parliament will just pass it. They don't have anything to do with it. So you can have all the members of Parliament. If you want to do a constitutional amendment of an entrenched provision, you still need to go through the referendum process only. And I do not see how many more provisions in the Constitution today that are not entrenched, that can have a two-thirds pass it. Those that two-thirds can pass, I think we've done them already. The citizenship one, the minimal one we did, and etc. What is left in the Constitution? The major talking points, ministers and whether they'll come from Parliament or not, an entrenched provision. Everything about the executive is an entrenched provision. Those who were worried about third term and all of that is an entrenched provision. Article 146 is part of the judicial side that is entrenched. So they would have to take Article 146 over to a referendum, and I don't know whether they're going to say amend this and change this or remove it completely. You can't remove it completely because you can't have a situation where there is no way to remove a Chief Justice. No, you can't have that. That doesn't set the balance of scale in constitutional jurisprudence. There has to be a way in which you can remove somebody, but you don't tinker with it often. You do it once in 100 years because in terms of checks and balances, nobody's above the law. And so there has to be a limitation on every power that is exercised under the law.
Okay, let's shift our attention now to the big elephant in the room, really, the job of oral and the concerns being raised about their effectiveness. So much talk, no prosecution yet. The president tried to answer that yesterday, just setting the tone for the conversation, telling us that indeed we are concerned that no prosecution yet. But there's a lot of work going on under the cover. He spoke about the likes of Eric Yaku, Gifty Owari, and Osei Asibi, that soon they will all be going through the process with the AG. But what's your thoughts, really?
Well, a couple of questions came up about oral. There was one from...
corruption or its incompetence, which is the bigger problem. We have been told all the time that the bigger problem is corruption. I beg to differ, and I know that I'm going to get a lot of scrolling for this, but if you engage with the literature well, you may find out that incompetence is a bigger problem because incompetence is more obvious to determine than corruption. And what has plagued Africa is incompetence. Why do I say that? Ghana has been said to be a poor country, blah, blah, blah. Okay. In 1995, Ghana was a poor country. In 1998, Ghana was a poor country. In 2001, Ghana was a hippie country. Sometime in 2006, somebody came to Ghana, a Ghanaian living here, set up a bank. Today, the bank is profitable, massively profitable. In the poor country, Ghana, the bank that was set up has been profitable. Businesses have come up. Joy FM here, you've advertised businesses that start tomorrow. Indomie noodles started on radio. Today is a huge business in the same Ghana that is not able to develop. What is happening? Is it that the people who set up these private enterprises are able to deliver it in a way that Joy FM started Joy TV way after Ghana Television started? Way after. How does Joy FM start Joy TV and it becomes more impactful than Ghana Television? It speaks to competence. Somebody is making competent decisions. That's what happens in Europe. People are making competent decisions. We have been told that your problem has nothing to do with competence, so we don't even look there. Our problem is corruption. I am angry because somebody stole money. How do we know somebody stole money? We were told by the politicians that somebody stole money. Many years ago, I interviewed Joe Gatti. I'll come to it very quickly. Joe Gatti is a politician. I interviewed him, and he was telling me that politics in Ghana has a very short time to live if things don't change. Because when people are desperate for power, they look at the opponent and say, you're a thief. When a parliamentarian tells me that an NDC parliamentarian is a thief, I believe it. When an NDC parliamentarian tells me that MPP is a thief, I believe it. So the easiest way to get the people on your side is to say that he is a thief. And that was what has been happening. When now you are told to show that he's a thief, then you are scrambling. Then your base is saying, what's happening to Oral? The things that Oral anticipated, did they really happen? The people that they said they are thieves, were they really thieves? Or that somebody was taking a political advantage of people's situation and suggesting to them that you are like this because somebody has stolen? Maybe nobody has stolen. Oral, this is not the first oral we're having. President Kufuor's oral was even greater. He set up courts, called them fast-track high courts, so that they will fast-track the process of the thieves. Chachuchi Kata got into trouble by challenging the basis of the fast-track high court. The fast-track high courts got established on the Supreme Court review. How many people were convicted by the fast-track high court up to today? How many? Fast forward to the next election, 2008. NDC championing it. They are stealing Ghana at 50 money. That Ghana at 50, they stole money. When the government won the election in January and February, like what has happened now, if you are driving in town, you're a young lady like you, or you're driving a Jaguar, they will seize it. and they'll tell you that from Ghana at 50. I was driving a Jaguar then. It was seized. Fortunately for me, it was seized right on the Spintex Road in front of where I bought the car because the showroom is right there. So when they seized it, I got down. I said, I bought the car from this shop. Let's cross the road. We went into the road. They said, he buy. They said, yeah, he bought the car from here. They said, you are a very lucky MPP man like you see. This is 2009. How many people were convicted under Ghana at 50? Zero. Absolutely zero. For all the noise that was made about Ghana at 50, they've stolen money. Ghana at 50, they've stolen money. Fast forward 2016. MPP campaign. Brass branding was a big deal. Corruption. Abdul Muhammad has a house in Dubai. It was said. Everybody. How many people were prosecuted? Zero. So we have to begin to tax our politicians that don't take the easy way out to win our support. Do some work on policy. Do some proper work and come and show us that this is what has happened. That's the kind of thing that permits me to say Dr. Bawumia was doing in his lectures. He wasn't saying anybody's a thief. He was saying that these and these things are happening. It suggests that there's something wrong somewhere. We bought into it then, we don't buy into it now. So it is the bane of the politicians when they want to win power. They just come and tell us somebody's a thief. Oral is struggling, and Oral will struggle because the basis to prove a thief in court is far more difficult than on the campaign platform when you flag somebody's name and say that he's a thief. That's easy. So Oral must come and begin to admit. This is the first process of Attorney General prosecution where we have seen that Attorney General seems to have put the plea bargaining at the front. It seems to be the first thing he's talking about. And all the lawyers are wondering, what is Attorney General saying? So people must come and plea bargain when the people say, I haven't stolen. Now, the question is this. When you go to court and you fail to prosecute somebody, does it mean the person hasn't stolen? It may not necessarily mean so. It is just that the standards that you have to show in the court, the standard of proof is 100%. You have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. So if you're able to prove a case 95% and the court is working normally, they will not convict the person on 95% of you having established it. You have to establish 100%. So if you watch European countries and advanced democracies, never would you hear a British parliamentary person, candidate or member of parliament, call another person a thief. They never do that. They hardly do that. In fact, Tony Blair was said to have been investigated by police also relating to the construction of, I think, Heathrow Airport or Wembley Stadium or something like that. Nobody even was told. The constable went to his house as prime minister or former prime minister and interviewed him and they left. But the way in which our politicians here, the laziness of our politicians to just find something against their opponents so that they can win power is what has brought us to this level where now Oral is, and then the Deputy Attorney General is frustrated, says that we are doing the work, we are doing the work. Betty Mould sang the same song. Gloria Kufu sang the same song. They are putting pressure on me, but I'm doing the work, and it's not happening because the things that we say in the campaign, we know that we cannot establish it in court.
Kojo, you want to say something?
Can I just say this, that he skirted the
suspicion of the World Bank and the IMF. It was just unfortunate because he had said earlier that the gains that we're seeing were as a result of the gold board, something like that. He gave that reason before, and now he says that it is true that the Bank of Ghana was doing something interesting. But the bigger conversation is about rating agencies and what role the rating agencies have in our system to rate it the way they want to rate it. Akufo-Addo complained about the rating agencies before, and now the rating agencies in 1 quarter of the same year said the Ghanaian currency is the best in the world, and this another quarter of the same year gave indications that the currency was not doing too well. We have had government communication challenging the assertion that it was the worst in the world, so we don't know where we are on that. But certainly they said that their appreciation had declined significantly. It's the rating agencies, and that's the bigger problem that we need to discuss. How we can secure our economy is databases analysis from some of these rating agencies, how we can build our own capacity to be able to conduct our own ratings so that when the rating agencies want information from Ghana, they just take it from Ghana. I believe that many years ago, or perhaps in other countries, when the rating agencies are looking for the numbers of people in a university, they have to guess it. Because if you don't have the data, they will guess it. But today, if they are looking for the number of people in the University of Ghana, University of Ghana has the data, they rely on them. The reason why we are susceptible to these rating agencies is that we don't have our own data. And so how the shiftings in our economy we are not able to properly assess. We don't have a data of how many people sell kenke in Ghana. We don't have a data of how many people sell bread in Ghana. If you go to England and you ask them how many people sell bread on Regent and Oxford Street, they'll tell you immediately. If a new bread seller comes, they know that they've now licensed one person to add. How many people sell awuza cocoa in Ghana? We can gather them by district by just counting. We have endless national service people. We don't use them to do this data analysis. I've always said the very funny one since I was in Presec up to today. If you ask how many people travel from 37 to Medina in Trotro every day, we don't know. We don't have all that information. So these rating agencies, when they come to pick up economic analysis, it was when Data Bank started the Consumer Price Index about 35 years ago that Joy FM was reporting the Data Bank Index. That's when we got a little bit of data collection in that space, apart from what Bank of Ghana has. So really, the big question is to develop systems that will be able to pull out data from how our economy is working, so that if 1 billion is thrown in the economy, we hear now that Cocoa Board is expecting some money. There should be data analysis available, whether by civil society, Imani or Joy FM or whoever, that this 1 billion that's coming to our economy today will be able to achieve this and that and that and that. But we don't have that data. And that's what Akufo-Addo was talking about, that African countries need to come together, spend money, build the data so that we are not susceptible to these international organizations who can say anything at any time depending on many, many factors.
Interesting. Let's talk about another key concerns that was raised yesterday by journalists. And we wanted to know, really, if government will be going back to the capital market. It was one of the key concerns that was raised. And the president sought to answer that question. He says we should hasten slowly. We're doing well without going